This is the first talk of the April-May 1986 retreat. At the very beginning talk, we will say several things about a talk and listening to a talk. There are quite a number of people here who are entirely new. It's the first time for them. There are people here who have been to many retreats regularly. There are people here who haven't been to a retreat in a long time. So, whatever situation one may find oneself in, can one listen openly to what is being said, even though one may have heard it many, many times over. It is not what one hears that is so important, but the very quality of the listening. Can it be open, free from expectation, free from a nagging memory that says, I've heard this so many times? At that moment, the memory is in the foreground, and what is being said has already passed by. Passed by as a fresh incentive to look. Sometimes people tell me that they're, particularly during the first talks, they're very tired. This may have several reasons, having had a long traveling to come to the retreat, having had long preparation, trying to prepare the family or for the family, working up things at the desk so one can take a week off. One is exhausted, and one only finds out how exhausted one is when the constant demands of one's daily life don't distract one from this exhaustion. Also, one may not have slept well in a new place, on a new, we can't call it bed, what we have to offer, on a new white foam oblong. It's not white anymore either. So one may be tired. There is a rest period before the talk, and if you find that you do sleep through part of the talk out of tiredness, experiment with taking a nap before the talk. Some people tell me it helps, some people say it's not enough, and then I'm more tired, more drowsy. I would have been better off not to have slept, so this is for us to find out what will aid the body in being alert. One may also find, upon looking a little bit closer and more carefully, that some of the things that are being said one doesn't want to hear. One is afraid to hear, feels threatened by. So the attention disappears. One begins to dream of better things or different things. Not making a conscious decision to do that. The mind takes care of that, the brain. If there's threat, to shut it out or fight it. Escape from it. It's very important during a talk to find a optimally comfortable position for the body, not to make this an exercise of endurance. One may have had past experience with such things, or may have read that this is a good thing to test oneself out, to put oneself into a painful situation. This is all nonsense. To find a good position or a chair, this chair was offered. Taking a moment in the offering of this chair, I sit very little on this chair, just at the beginning of a meeting period and this particular round before talk. All the rest of the time this chair is available. If you want to transport it to the mat that you've chosen, this is all right. If you want to sit right here facing any which direction, this is all right too. Maybe not that one now thinks I have to find something that's comfortable all the time. Nothing is comfortable all the time. Not even the bed. We toss from one side to another. To bring another chair in here, and as was pointed out, to put maybe not just one carpet strip, but two. One may not quite be enough for the spread of the legs of the chair, so we don't damage this beautiful new floor that took many man and woman hours to put down and finish. If one prefers to sit on the floor, on the mat, and yet the position does become uncomfortable, there's no problem to change it. Can one change the leg, undo the posture, change the leg, taking one's time so that it can happen attentively and quietly with a minimum of disturbance to the person sitting before, behind, or next to one. I think we can all observe that when the body is free of pain and what that evokes in the mind, there's a possibility of a very open listening. One's battling with the pain, then the pain becomes the content of one's life at that moment. How to deal with it, how to get one with it. And it's, even though it can be very attentive to the pain, the mind is enclosed in that task. Tremendous energies may arise from this, being attentive to the pain, or as it is often put, being one with the pain. This is why this is often considered such a valuable practice, because there's something for the mind to do, to encompass, to penetrate, to be one with this pain. And in the process of this concentration, heat and energy arises. But it's a very small arena, a small auditorium in which there's very often the image of the sufferer as well as the conqueror of that suffering. If it works, then one feels so good about oneself that one has licked the pain. So it's no object here, no purpose in sitting to evoke pain and then deal with pain. If pain comes, can it arise on a vast stage, if we may use that word, with no one there doing something about it? It's just being there in the full light of awareness. Not awareness zeroing in on it. I have to be aware of that. It's there, and if it's not named, known, labeled, dealt with, reacted to, try to be done with it, or try to conquer it, or if all of that is seen for more activity of the mind, and the mind quiets down in the presence of whatever's happening here, not right or left, it doesn't matter. These are still thoughts. Not knee or back, these are still thoughts The reality is this. But also and this breeze of fresh air. No end to it. No end to what's there. Coming back to the talk and to listening to a talk, we mentioned, can one be aware if there's memory? She said this before, why doesn't she say something new for a change? She's trying to. And to see what that memory does, to observe all of that is prime stuff to see. Not that the stuff is so important, but what happens to the mind, to the awareness when things are observed and without judgment or acceptance. Also, memory may come in to compare what this person says to what other people have said, and then the mind being busy in what we have been taught to do in school, to compare this person with that person and to write an evaluative analysis or to come up with one. We have all of these ingrained, trained programs. And there's always more than the activity itself. Also, it feeds this feeling of me. I'm pretty good at this. I have something to say about this comparison. I become somebody in the process. The comparer, the evaluator, the praiser or the blamer. To see all of that. Because we are all prisoners of that, of these processes, of these mental brain processes, deeply imprinted, programmed into the mind. If in listening something seems totally unclear or false, not so, then maybe it'll come back during a meeting, or one can write it down after the talk and bring it into a meeting, and we'll discuss it freshly. The doubt, the question. I appreciate such things being brought up. I really do. And I may also bring them back to a talk, not to expose any individual. Let me say this right now too. Things will be brought up in talks of what has been brought up in meeting, because it's usually applying to all of us. Very seldom is something brought up totally personal to that particular person. If we stay on the surface, that's what it is. If we dig deeper and deeper, it becomes universal, universally so for human beings. And for this reason, things are being brought up here that have been said and mentioned in meetings. Of course, not giving away the identity of the person, but as someone whose question or problem this was, please don't feel that this is an indiscretion. It is done to help us all understand ourselves more thoroughly, clearly. So, and with this I come to what was said briefly last night, not to view this person as the teacher. Now this has been said many times, and some people have a feeling for what is being said. Other people have difficulty with that, feeling there is some inconsistency there. She says during the talks, I'm not the teacher, but then she talks, after all. Why? Sometimes the person has said, well, why don't I give a talk? Why doesn't he give a talk? So don't be hypocritical about this. This is why I feel I need to look at it again and again, together with all of us. Teaching in the traditional accepted way means somebody imparting knowledge to someone else who doesn't have that knowledge or not all of that knowledge. Teacher or skill. Can be teacher of a violin, teacher of dance, teacher of painting, teacher of athletics, or teacher of academic knowledge, of engineering. In every case, there is a skill. All of this comes under this vast field of knowledge, skill that is accumulated in the teacher and from the teacher imparted to the student. Teacher serves also as a model, particularly when it is a matter of performing arts, athletics, or so. Here, there is no accumulated body of anything. Of course, giving talks, often a certain facility develops, but that cannot be imparted either. A person has to start giving talks to also have this certain facility develop. Cannot be imparted. I do not deny that in working here at this place and other places a certain function is fulfilled by me, or whether it is fulfilled, I don't know, is performed. So difficult to find the right words. This function, as I see it, is to point things out, to question things, to dialogue, to enter into with someone or alone. But this is something that starts freshly every time. You may think that this talk is similar to other talks, you can prove it to me, but here it's new. I'm not trying to think, what did I say? If I thought that, it would be disastrous. I'm trying to think, what did I say that time? Then this openness would be gone. Then there would be this narrow memory file through which the scanner jumps. Pick up this and that item. So, do you see that in this relationship here, we're all looking at the same thing? We may not, we may be sleepy or wandering off, or we may indeed be there too, looking, seeing the same thing, or saying, wait a minute, you don't see that right. That's not so. And then bring it up and we'll start fresh. May not remember what particular sentences were used or examples were used, but it doesn't matter what was said in the morning or the night before or the day before, because if this seeing and looking and examining is vital, is alive, it can take place anytime, any place, fresh. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't have to be learned by heart. That becomes dead stuff. Do you see that? I wish to say that with what is being said, I am not intending to influence people, to come over to my view. It isn't a view. It is pointing out what is seen. I may see incompletely, falsely, and that can be discussed. But it is not to try to say, adopt that. This would be totally anathema to what is happening. For somebody to adopt this would be lethal to the mind. More stuff in there. We already have so much of it, and I don't mean the necessary knowledge to perform our jobs or our recreational activities, but all the beliefs and superstitions and ideas and ideals that so crowd the mind and so affect it and influence it. Not just the mind, but the whole body, the behavior, and our relationship with other people. So not to add one more doctrine to that, but to see the stuff and wonder whether one can look and live free from accumulated opinions, ideas, which can only happen if one sees opinions as opinions, beliefs as beliefs, superstitions as superstitions, meaning coming out of a programmed brain, not out of free seeing. So if something is said, it is thrown out as here it is. Can you see it this way? And not there's your way and my way. It's not a matter of your way and my way. If it's just my way, it's no good. Do you see that? It has to be universally seen to be so. The seeing being not even attached or conditioned by what is seen. Seeing is free, listening. That's not yours or mine. The mind is open and not worried about its image, its self-image. How good it can hear or how poorly it listens. What effort is there? What ownership is there? What difference between hearing here or there? Because you can say one person may be hard of hearing. Yes, granted. What is said, I mentioned before, may not be pleasant to listen to, because what is pointed out is how we human beings live in division, in a feeling of separation, so easily flaring into mutual antagonism on the tiniest individual level and on a global level. How we live in psychological insecurity, feelings of insufficiency, inadequacy, and all our compensation for these feelings of insufficiency. Trying on this shaky structure to build a superstructure of being important, worthwhile, loved, acknowledged, and yet never feeling security in that either because of the shaky understructure. This understructure of feeling insufficient, insecure, inferior, making for a constant desire to make up for it. Wanting things, wanting people, wanting ideas, wanting systems, father figures, mother figures, lover figures, to take care of one. And never facing this understructure of fear and insecurity, coming face to face with it, with no escape, no escape, no sliding into a system of thinking about something or other, a loving, helping God or Buddha who will somehow in the future take care of me, or maybe is already taking care of me. That one can believe, but then there is no looking. No looking at the fears and no looking where these beliefs originate. Belief in God, loving Buddha, salvation, retribution, karma, all of these things we throw around in our minds cling to and yet don't feel quite satisfied with and have to have it reaffirmed by others. It's another place where there's no role or function here to comfort people. You'll be all right tomorrow. You'll never be all right tomorrow. Gotta be all right now. Do you see that? Not postpone looking at this non-rightness, facing it with a mind that is open to face, and most of the problem is resolved. And the mind is open. Problems have a way of revealing themselves in dwindling because we didn't look at it right. We were already on the escape route, just every once in a while a furtive glance at the problem. This is not how one can see a problem, furtively, on the run. One has to be there completely with it, and yet not, as we said before, making a little auditorium out of this whole thing. We're all there. All humanity is here. Same problems, same fears, the same escapes and beliefs and illusions. The same volatility when it comes to being offended in one's self-image, offended or questioned, rattled, made insecure in one's self-image to which one clings for security. Everywhere, all people throughout the world have self-image. It may not be self-image individually. Some cultures, the self-image attaches to the whole tribe. Not to me individually. That's the greatest of sin, to have an individual self-image. It's drowning the individuality in the larger unit, the tribe or the nation. Remember going to school in Germany, climbing up the stairs, there were these sampler proverbs all over the place that hit your eye. They were put at eye level. You are nothing, your nation is everything. It became your Weltanschauung, your way of looking at things. You're nothing, your nation is everything. So let the nation be attacked, and I am attacked, personally. The identification has taken place. Another one of those samplers said, Gemeinnutz geht vor Eigennutz, which means the common good is above the individual good. So, if I make the common good my ideal, well, what is the limitation of the common good? Is in that case was your country. It means anything your country does, invading, bombing, left, right, up and down, is all right. If I object, then I'm indulging in my own individual wants and desires. And this process of identifying with self-image or larger image for the sake of security has been cleverly exploited. People who had a limited knowledge of psychological functioning of human beings, and it's happening all the time. It's happening now, religiously, militarily, politically, ideologically, economically. All these structures so as not to face what gives rise to them, and to face that seeing the urge to cling to one's habitual safety blanket, seeing that urge come up, and yet saying, no, wait a minute, I want to see what is this arising out of, or else this thing will go on and on and on. The fear of what I am when I'm nothing, that I can project or that other people will confirm in me. That's why we spoke at some length last night about this tremendous investment that we have in eye contact, making sure all the time by taking a sampling, how do I look, how did I perform? What security is there in that? And it is done for the sake of security. And it's utter insecurity. It's fine when all the eyes seem to say, yeah, you're great. And the next moment, these same eyes say to somebody else, you're great. Somebody else is greater. Or you're not great. Then feeling devastated, as one person put it. And then one has to build up this devastated image again. Why? It's like in a tremendously strong breeze to constantly put up a thin paper poster. It'll be knocked, holes put into it, ripped, laid flat, and there we're already putting a new poster up. Because we resist, we come up with any kind of image. This is incredible to observe. Grossly and very subtly, so can there be this awareness of our clinging to self-image. And how it is promoted in our society. This here goes completely contra to what is being advocated, what we're trained to project a good image, to attain a good image, to work hard to achieve a good image, without understanding the mechanics of image making. The tenuousness of it. The sorrow and fear and hatred and jealousy and competitiveness that goes with image making. How it makes impossible relating to each other on a non-image level, on a non-image direct human being to human being level. You may say it's impossible. It's not possible. But don't say that. If you say it, then you don't investigate whether it is indeed possible. By looking at images and seeing whether in the deep awareness and understanding of the process, this process itself may wear out, may lose its security function, which it doesn't have. It only has a sorrow and conflict function. I think this whole going into the image question started with saying, I do not see any function here in this work of comforting people in their image, but to turn the light on, to look, to lay it bare, so we can see. Somebody mentioned how incredibly frustrating, miserable and confusing one lives when one constantly tries to be perfect, seeing that one cannot be perfect, and yet wanting to be perfect, and wanting acknowledgement of one's perfections, but not being able to get them. I think one of the craziest ideas that has sprung out of the human brain is that of perfection. The idea we have of being perfect. And of course, going along with this is the idea of a perfect God who in his or her, is usually his, perfection, watches us imperfect beings and keeps score. This may sound funny, but I recently picked up out of the mail a little booklet. It was like a funny book, funnies, comic, a little comic book, black and white, and here and there red was not spared. It was of a person suddenly dying. A young person had been an aggressive, successful business person, and here you see him lying in the grave. You see this little hollow space under the earth, and there he's lying with not much on, nothing on, thinking he's dead, but he was not dead, and showing how he's now being lifted up by two angels to heaven, and everything that he's done wrong as he's being presented with. One time it was unbelievable. There was a cement corner of a house, and you saw one of his eyes peeking around and a young girl walking by. And he was saying some very innocuous remark, but oh boy, or something. He was blamed here for lusting after woman. And then he was taken down to the deepest hell of misery. All of this was in this little black and white comic book. Somehow or other, I didn't quite understand the connection. He was given another chance to repent, subscribe to the methods of the faith, and then being good. And from then on, he was good. All of this idea. So somebody said, well, if I'm nothing, what am I? Well, first of all, does one really see that one is nothing in terms of images? And does one see the images? Or does one now have a new image, I'm nothing? Which is a very depressing one. Some images are less depressing than others. Some of them outright like a fix. Good image and you feel tremendous. You feel on top of the world and other people are supporting it and one feels good. And then the image is blasted and one feels down in the dumps. To feel I'm nothing and have an image of that is a very depressing affair. Does one see how the depression comes about? That this is caused by the concept of being nothing. And the sadness accompanying it. I'm not all of these other things I've wanted to be all my life. Sort of like a mourning for deceased friends. Or does one really see what image making and images are, what they do? And that one isn't that. What one is not makeable into an image. One has to listen, attend, look, feel. And we mentioned last night, not in a limited way, just in this little skin bag. But with an altogether new openness that doesn't end with the skin and my affairs. That includes everyone and everything. So what is one when one is no image? Let's rather put it this way. This thing is when I'm nothing, immediately evokes feelings, well, I should be something. We've been told this all our life, be somebody, become something, make something of your life. Be famous, become the president. You have that opportunity in this country. These are the things that come at us. I saw a sign posted in the library, I forgot the exact wording. A little girl beaming, that was a put-on beam, with a big book in her hands. It says, How to Learn to Play Tennis. And something underneath said, in the library a champion is born, or something like that. It comes at us from all sides. And it came so early. What are you going to be when you're big? That program has to be traced very, very alertly. Because if we don't trace it, it runs us. Becoming associated with spiritual organizations, religious movements, where one becomes a better person or an advanced disciple or developed being. All of these becomings and which are connected with images are blind spotted. We are allowed not to have to look at that because the religion, the spiritual tradition sanctions that. Very, very difficult to become aware of these things when they are religiously sanctioned, and just as they are industrially, politically, ideologically sanctioned to rise up in the ranks. After all, we need leaders, it said. I remember in some spiritual organization it was said, these people who are now leaders or have these functions, they are sacrificing their spiritual entrance into nirvana or something in order to. But it was just a justification of meting out power and wielding power and not looking at it. At anew being somebody. And then we wonder what keeps us apart out of this incredible flow of pulsating life. Which we are. When we're not encased in these paper images. Now I'm holding up a new image. Watch it. I want to be one. I want to be whole. I want to be all of life. How quickly the mind conceptualizes it and has something new to become. A new injection of hope. But it's not something for the future. Can one listen now? All the impulses inside and out. And what is that quality of listening? has nothing to do with success or failure. It's nothing to do with me or you. It's there. So it has nothing to do with our past or with the future. Somebody said, you know, these birds there, as beautiful as they sound, they may be fighting, trying to chase each other out of the territory. That's true. We've learned this by observing birds. Some of the bird talk or cry or song that goes on is to establish territory. This is my place. Don't come in. And one can observe it either through the movies, or one has some patience to observe it for oneself, how sometimes the littlest bird will chase a huge bird and not give up until that bird is gone. And then may or may not yak in the process. Crows do an incredibly raucous fighting, trying to, I don't know what all they're doing. It's very confusing to watch crows. Or a bird will sing to attract the mate, beautiful songs, to attract the female. And of course the little ones will do their thing to attract the parents to say, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, no matter how much is stuffed down their throats. But so what? The sound of it is what it is. The other is the interpretation. Also, once a bird has chased another bird out of its district, it doesn't rally other birds to pursue it. The bird that has been chased out doesn't rally other birds to avenge the humiliation. Throw a few bombs on this nest. That only happens when you start thinking. It's amazing how bloodlessly animals usually concede the strength of another one. And rarely is there blood being let or another animal killed. And if they were all hovering in one district, there wouldn't be enough food to go around. This is a very intelligent and balanced system. Most of the time, until human beings start interfering through thought-created processes. But even if birds know no better than chase others out and attract their mates and raise their young, what does it mean for us? Is it an example to follow? I'm not saying that the person implied this, we were just talking about it, looking at it. Can one listen to the sound of birds and animals and wind and trees and human beings and cars without any interpretation or reaction whatsoever? If a reaction comes up to listen to that, it won't take over if it's listened to. Because the listening we have to talk about this some other time. It was brought up too in meeting, whether there's effort in this. There can be effort in it if there's trying to control things. But quietly attending right now, is that effort. Do you have to know who is who? Do you even have to know the direction where it comes from? We think we have to know, but see that we think we have to know. That's a process of the brain. There's nothing to do with this chi-chi. So what makes possible this openness without connection to our 1,000-and-million-year-old past of ideas? The moment that comes up, we are caught up in it, we listen to that, and the vastness of life is lost to us. We miss it. And therefore we are battling each other, fighting each other. In accordance with ancient history. We will end here for today.